Welcome
Welcome to Beyond the
Beyond the
Byline.
Byline, where student voices speak louder than censorship. Hi guys, my name is Trisha Panicker, and I'm the Club Development Officer for New Voices Texas this year. And I am the editor-in-chief of our Prosper High School newspaper called Eagle Nation Online. And what about you, Sydney?
Hi, my name is Sydney Ortiz, and I'm a legislative and communications specialist for New Voices Texas, and I am currently the editor in chief for my school newspaper, kptimes.com at Kingwood Park High School. So, New
Cool.
Voices Texas is a group of student journalists who are advocating for legal protections for scholastic journalists against censorship. We're fighting to be able to write, amplify the voices of people around us without having outside voices censor us or even internally censoring ourselves.
Yes, it's really important that just like professional adult journalists, that we student journalists also have the chance to publish what goes on in our mind, our stances on controversial issues. We shouldn't have to face censorship just for our opinion and writing it. And so, a big reason why we are fighting for student voices, student press rights, is because of this case known as Hazelwood versus Kohlmeyer. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, what happened was it was this case that allowed school administration to exercise editorial control over their school sponsored newspapers. And this stemmed from the Spectrum newspaper, and they published a series of so called controversial articles, on teen pregnancy, um, teen issues in general. And because of this, the principal removed their articles, and the newspaper team, they actually took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and that was where they actually lost. And it was decided that editorial control could happen, so like prior restraint and prior review could happen on school-sponsored newspapers, which is what we are fighting against because we believe that this violates our First Amendment rights.
Yes. And so we've been fighting since about 2019. New Voices Texas has been an organization, and we've been advocating for a New Voices legislation. There's so many different types of censorship. They go from financial censorship, self-censorship, prior restraint, prior review, advisor firings. There's so many different ways you can be censored. And we, since 2019, have been an organization advocating for a bill in Texas to be passed so we can write and go through our First Amendment right without being censored. And so this past year in 2025, the Texas legislation is it goes on a 2-year kind of period. So it's in session for a year, and then you wait 2 more years for the next session. So this past year, we were in session, and State Representative Gina Hinojosa filed House Bill 4821, which is a New Voices bill for high school students. And this bill was referred to a public education committee, and supporters lobbied committee members to schedule the bill for a hearing, but ultimately it died at the end of regular session in May. So we didn't get a hearing, we didn't get to go get the bill passed, and it just died. And so now we have to wait all the way until 2027 before the next session to even get our bill heard again. It's really important to us that we are advocating, especially during this year, so we can get that bill filed and signed in 2027.
Yeah, and so this year it's going to look a little different as to what our activism is because it is not a legislative session this year nor next year. And so we're going to focus our efforts primarily on education. And so that's what the big emphasis has been placed on for this year. And as the club development officer, I really wanted to place an emphasis on starting clubs in schools because I feel like that's one of the first ways that we can actually educate students, journalists, non-journalists alike. And so, if you go to our New Voices Texas website, just search up New Voices Texas and click on the first link, you'll see that there's a updated club starter kit that you can use to start your own club. And even though with Senate Bill 12 and all these new regulations on clubs, I still believe that you can start this club, and it's very beneficial to educate everyone and even educate your school administration on this, because I feel like most importantly, trying not to get censored by your school administration starts with educating them, because I often feel like there's this like sort of taboo around, you know, new voices, because they often think like, oh, this is like anything and anything can get past the editorial team, and like articles on anything can publish, which is like profanity, and it can include that, which it cannot be further from the truth. All New Voices is all about not censoring what we think as teenage journalists, and we can speak on issues that affect us without having to think like, oh, am I going to get censored? So yeah, we are really focusing on education this year, and we would really like if you guys would start a club, because that would really help further our cause, especially in a year where it's not a legislative session. And you can contact me. My email will be available.
So important that we educate not just students in journalism, but students in other organizations around our school and get it involved. Because us being censored doesn't just hurt us, it hurts the community from getting pure journalism. And that is so important in society, especially when sadly a lot of smaller newspapers have been bought out or have been taken away. So your community might not be getting coverage as much as it used to be. And we are that coverage that they can get. And so if we get censored, it's not fair not just to us, but it's not fair to the community because they aren't getting their pure, uncensored journalism.
I mean, yeah, for example, in Prosper, Texas, where I live, there's no like newspaper covering events solely in Prosper, Texas. The only newspaper that does that is Eagle Nation Online, which is the school newspaper. And so we cover events that I often don't see being covered in other newspapers, which what makes it so unique and what makes it so important to protect our editorial rights. And actually, I just want to share something that happened to me recently that's not full on censorship, but it's like kind of there. But basically, in Texas, it's not, or at least in my school district, it's not mandated that you have the Ten Commandments up in every single classroom. And this happened after Christian Alliance, the Christian organization, they donated enough posters to make that happen. And so I decided to write an article on it, just a purely unbiased news article on it. However, I was denied many times for an interview. The principal denied my interview. All school administration officials, they also denied my interview because this article was, in their words, too confrontational. And the questions I was asking, which in my opinion and my teammates' opinion, it was completely unbiased, but unfortunately to them, it was too confrontational. And they advised me to not go along with this article, but I did anyways. It's now published on the website. But yeah, it just goes to show just how important protecting editorial rights is, because I did not see that being covered in even newspapers in my school district. So yeah, just an example.
Yeah, no, it's so important that us as journalists, we are, I mean, the closest thing you can get that covers us is about 40 minutes away, like the biggest newspaper in Houston. And so that's a little frustrating for us because when like Hurricane Beryl happened, there weren't many people covering it specifically in our area. And so I had that responsibility. And so it's really important to make sure everybody around us, I mean, parents should be able to know what's going on in their schools with your story. So it's so important that we as journalists have that right and we aren't getting censored. And so, yes, the clubs we do here, joining New Voices Texas, y'all can go on the website and you can join, get involved now. We'd love to have you guys. And so just like any help we can get, that's our goal.
And please don't feel intimidated, to reach out to any one of us. We'll happily answer your emails. We've already had a few newspapers reach out to us and ask if like they could interview us to like help us with a story, or just like in general just advice. And another contact that you can keep in handy if you are facing, repeated censorship is the Student Press Law Center, and their contact information, you can just search it up, or it's on our website too. But yeah, just don't feel intimidated to reach out for any help, because that's what we're here for. And yeah. And I just want to say, keep telling your story, because your voice matters. And we'll catch you in the next session.